I wish someone had gone through this with me when I started backpacking. I wish someone had run through the different types of stoves, what they do, what they're for, and how to use them with me before I went and did it for myself. When it comes to stoves, we can do the same things with a stove in the backcountry as we do at home. Once we know what we want to eat, we have to decide how much control of the heat we need and how wide we need the heat to disperse. The most obvious way to cook in the backcountry, and the cheapest by far, is to cook on an open fire. Now, you have very little control of the temperature of the flame, and you have very little control of the kind of distribution of the flames. Or you can go the opposite route and have something that has a really intense flame that's really localized. And that would be something like this. This is the Toaks Siphon alcohol stove. Basically what it does is it boils water. You can't control the temperature, it's the heat that alcohol boils at. You pour the alcohol in, you set it inside here, and you set a pot full of water on top, and it boils the water. With this system, you have a very small surface area to heat, and all you're doing is heating water. The contents of a small surface area with a really localized heat. And that will give you the lightest possible equipment you could bring outside of cooking for a fire. This stove, I believe, is 26 grams, and the windscreen for it and pot stand is, I'm gonna weigh it right now, 33 grams. So this whole kit together is gonna be about 50 grams. If you need to be able to control the heat, you'll use something like a canister stove. This one is the BRS 3000. You can get this on Amazon for 25 bucks Canadian. It weighs about 25 grams and it attaches to a canister, an isobutane propane mix. All it does is, you can see, it screws onto the top. Let's close that because we're inside. You open the valve, which controls how much gas is released, and you light a spark and you have a flame on top of this. That is your next level of control. These two, because the flame is so localized, are fantastic for boiling water. If you're going to rehydrate meals in a pouch, like the Mountain House or the Peak Refuel or the Flat Out Feasts, these are fantastic because they do exactly what you need them to do. They localize the heat, they give it a lot of heat really quickly, and then you use the water somewhere else. If you want to get into cooking into a pot, you need a little more control over the temperature than the BRS allows you to do. So what I do is I would bring something like this. This is the MSR Pocket Rocket 2. It's about 3 times as heavy as either of those. It weighs about 75 grams, and it has a built-in kind of windscreen inside it, so you get some protection from the heat, but it has a much greater ability to fine-tune the amount of fuel that's being burned. So I would use something like this if I was going to, say, cook a meal inside this pot. So if I'm going to cook, like, if I'm going to do like a couscous or something in here, what I'll do is I'll use this and I'll have it at a much lower heat because I have much greater control over how much fuel is being fed into that flame. It attaches to the propane canister in the exact same way as the BRS. It screws onto the bottom, and then you have control there. This still gives you a very small concentration of heat. If I want to get past that and I want to cook something like an omelet, or I want to slow cook some meat or do something like that, I'm going to go to a stove like this. This is the GSI Glacier stove. It is twice as heavy as the MSR Pocket Rocket, and it weighs about 170 grams. But what it allows you to do is cook something in a much wider pan. And the heat, you can see, the heat comes out the side instead of directly up through the middle. So it distributes the heat much more widely across the base of the pan. This will allow you to cook things like an omelet or a steak, which is fantastic out in the backcountry. The last stove I want to talk about is kind of in the middle of these two as far as the way it distributes heat and the way it distributes widely across the base of a thing. But it's unique in a different way. This is the GSI Pinnacle. And what this is this is a remote canister stove. The only thing that makes it remote is the canister doesn't screw on to the base of the stove. It screws onto a fuel line. And the canister sits remotely from the stove. So you can see this stove has a much wider base at the bottom because of these 3 legs that are protruding. And it has a much wider base for a pot to sit on. So if I'm out using this, this will sit on it. And I can also use a much wider pot like this. But the important thing about this is this little tube. When you're cooking in cold temperatures, the fuel in an isobutane canister liquefies because it's cold, so it's no longer stored as a compressed gas. It liquefies and it pools at the bottom of this, which means that if you are setting your stove on top of the fuel canister, the fuel is not able to get out to the stove. With a remote canister stove, you can attach the fuel to the fuel line, and in cold weather, you can invert the fuel so that it's feeding liquid fuel through the fuel line, and it reaches this copper tube before it hits the stove. Now what this copper tube does is it allows the liquefied fuel to heat and vaporize. So it's going to burn liquid fuel for the first few seconds until this copper tube heats and vaporizes, at which point it's going to heat the fuel that's coming over this stove, and then it's going to feed it gas instead of liquid, which means you can use these canisters in much colder temperatures. And this stove, the GSI Pinnacle, actually weighs just less than the GSI Glacier, the wide-based canister stove. Weighs, I think, 160 something grams. So now you know what I know. When you're looking for your first backpacking stove, decide what it is that you want to cook on it. Do you want to have steaks? Do you want to have an omelet? Do you want to have just like freeze-dried meals that you rehydrate? Do you want to cook pasta? What is it that you want to cook? And that will help you decide what you want to buy for your first backpacking stove. Don't make the mistake I did. Don't buy the cheapest, quickest thing. Look into what you really want to use it for and decide. Or borrow one, even better. Borrow gear. Borrow gear. And see what you like and what you don't like. It will save you from owning all the stoves that I own.